Now you got to kind of put it down on paper and make sure it makes sense. You got to develop what I consider to be a 3-year metaverse roadmap. And one of the things that I think is very important, at least from our knowledge in the industry, there are 3 streams inside the roadmap. There's a people stream, a process stream, and a technology stream. And needless to say, I understand the technology impacts a process, and the process needs to be learned by people. So you have all kinds of activities within one stream, but dependencies across streams. And that's what makes for an effective roadmap. And again, we write them for a living, so it's something we know very well. But you have to include all 3 streams. And what that then allows you to do is you project manage it, is you're not getting too far ahead with the technology without the proper training, or process without the proper training. You're not getting too far ahead on one piece of it without making sure the whole roadmap is moving forward. And one of the things that is very important in an effective roadmap is what we call monitoring activities. So you got to set up at the outset your approach to how you're going to monitor the activities. Again, a good PMO, project management officer, or project manager does that as a part of their overall job. But what we've found is that roadmap becomes a critical document. It's a livable document. It's distributable. You can talk it through, and you work together in your committee, your Metaverse committee, to make that happen. And I just mentioned in red that today we don't use any of the waterfall methodologies. They're largely out the window in terms of building roadmaps. We use agile methodology so that you can build chunks in 3 to 6 week pieces, and you bite off the elephant in pieces. So that's step number 7, develop a 3-year metaverse roadmap, but making sure you have these different streams. Tim, anything on step number 7 you'd like to add?
No, I mentioned it earlier too, that the individual divisional approach, as opposed to a big metaverse roadmap that's just enterprise. And again, in the develop a 3-year metaverse, I do think it has to have a global company viewpoint, but it's got to also be developed in steps. And I think that this is important for them to understand.
Good. Final step, the business case, or in some cases it's a business justification document. But again, this is not, this is costly. This is not buying a $500 PC. This undertaking a program that's in the tens of thousands, in some cases it may be hundreds of thousands, and extremes it might be millions. But the key point, and Tim's already made the point, is you build the business case typically for a division. That's who typically buys into it. The VP of sales, the VP of marketing, the VP of customer service, the VP of field engineering. And so what you're looking for in the business case is you're going to build it based on the costs for all of the people, process, technology activities. You are going to generate a revenue forecast from the investment, and we just, because we're in the industry for so long, Tim and I, we have a pretty good understanding of how the J-stick looks when you, or the J-curve looks when you launch a new technology. You are going to predict a break-even date when revenues in and expenses out cross, so you've got a date, and that then begins to generate positive cash flow, and then you'll be using the ROI metrics to measure that. I typically like to do it on a quarterly basis through a 5-year period to make sure that you kind of hold people accountable, and it allows you to really go back to the document and say, this is what we promised, this is what we're delivering, or if you're not able to deliver it, why you're not able to deliver it, et cetera. But the roadmap together with the business case, and some companies are formal in a business case, and some companies are less formal. We call it a business justification. I still think that's a critical document to drive accountability inside the organization. And I kind of put in red, I think the metaverse, since it will continue over the next years to define itself and get more nuanced and so forth, so too should your business case be comfortable in using what we call contingencies or contingency margins. So the key point is, you lock it in, you justify, you get your funding with the understanding that things can change over time given the technology changes that are likely to happen over the next 3 to 5 years in the metaverse technology. Tim, your feelings on step number 8?
No, and the one thing about that 10-year cycle is that the technologies will advance, but in theory, because of competition at the hardware and software level, the costs will actually come down. And
yeah,
that's important to remember, that while the initial phase might be more expensive, the once you get it in place and you start down a path where you're adjusting both hardware and software over that 5-year period, and then for the long term, your ROI will, especially at the back end, come in even faster.